Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader for over 3 decades, commands absolute power over 85 million people, living a life of luxury while his nation suffers. His regime has transformed Iran into one of the most repressive states on earth. Yet beneath this iron grip lies a fragile foundation that could crumble at any moment, and the question that haunts the Middle East is simple: what happens when he falls? Ali Khamenei was born on April 19, 1939, in Mashhad, a religious city in northeastern Iran. His father, Javad Khamenei, was a modest Islamic scholar who struggled financially, and his mother raised 8 children in poverty. Growing up in a humble household, young Ali was exposed to religious teachings and political discussions about foreign interference in Iran. From a young age, Khamenei was drawn to religious studies and revolutionary politics. He attended seminaries in Mashhad and Qom, where he studied under influential clerics who opposed the Shah's Western-leaning monarchy. This combination of religious devotion and political activism would shape his entire worldview. He became known for his stern demeanor and unwavering commitment to conservative Islamic principles, traits that would define his leadership style for decades to come. As a young cleric, Khamenei became involved in the underground opposition movement against Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. He aligned himself with Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, who was calling for an Islamic revolution to overthrow the monarchy. In the 1960s and 70s, Khamenei was arrested and tortured multiple times by Savak, the Shah's brutal secret police, which only strengthened his revolutionary credentials. Khamenei saw an opportunity in 1979 when the Islamic Revolution swept through Iran. He became a founding member of the Islamic Republican Party, leveraging his relationship with Khomeini to gain influence. He promised to create a pure Islamic state free from Western corruption and to restore Iran's dignity on the world stage. After the revolution succeeded, Khamenei quickly climbed the political ladder. He served as a representative in the Assembly of Experts and became Tehran's Friday prayer leader, giving him a powerful platform. In 1981, after the assassination of President Mohammad Ali Rajai, Khamenei was elected president of Iran. Though the presidency held less power than the supreme leader position, it positioned him perfectly for his ultimate ascension. When Ayatollah Khomeini died in 1989, the Assembly of Experts faced a dilemma. Khamenei was not considered a senior enough cleric for the role, but political maneuvering and constitutional changes allowed his selection as supreme leader. Over the next few years, he systematically consolidated absolute power, controlling the military, judiciary, state media, and economic institutions. For over 30 years, Khamenei has ruled Iran with an iron fist. He controls the Revolutionary Guards, a powerful military and economic force that crushes dissent and enriches regime loyalists. His network of enforcers terrorizes anyone who questions religious authority or challenges government policies. Women who remove their hijabs, journalists who report unfavorable news, and protesters who demand reform face arrest, torture, and imprisonment. Khamenei built massive religious foundations and promoted Iran as a defender of Islam against Western imperialism. But while he wanted Iran to look powerful and self-sufficient, the economy has been devastated by corruption, mismanagement, and international sanctions. His obsession with nuclear development and regional influence has cost Iran hundreds of billions in lost trade and investment. Most of his grand projects serve propaganda purposes rather than improving ordinary Iranians' lives. The narcissism is evident in how Khamenei presents himself. His image appears everywhere in Iran, on billboards, murals, and government buildings, always portrayed as a wise, benevolent father figure. He lives in a heavily guarded compound in Tehran, with access to the finest amenities, while inflation crushes the middle class. His family has accumulated enormous wealth through control of business networks and religious foundations worth billions. Meanwhile, over 40% of Iranians live below the poverty line. Khamenei has pursued an aggressive foreign policy centered on expanding Iranian influence throughout the Middle East. He built and funded proxy forces in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, creating what analysts call a Shiite crescent of allied militias. Through Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Assad regime in Syria, militias in Iraq, and the Houthis in Yemen, Iran projects power far beyond its borders. His nuclear program became the defining international crisis of his rule. Despite claiming it was purely for peaceful energy purposes, Khamenei pushed for uranium enrichment capabilities that brought Iran to the threshold of nuclear weapons capability. This led to crippling international sanctions that devastated Iran's economy, yet Khamenei remained defiant, viewing the program as essential to Iran's security and regional standing. When the Arab Spring erupted in 2011, Khamenei initially praised uprisings against pro-Western dictators but brutally crushed similar protests at home. The Green Movement in 2009 had already shown the regime's willingness to kill its own citizens. Protesters demanding free elections were shot in the streets, and opposition leaders were placed under house arrest where they remain today. Khamenei's relationship with the West has been defined by confrontation. He maintained Khomeini's designation of America as the Great Satan and regularly leads crowds in chants of "Death to America." When the nuclear deal was negotiated in 2015, Khamenei reluctantly accepted it but never fully committed, continuing to develop ballistic missiles and support regional proxies. When President Trump withdrew from the agreement in 2018, Khamenei declared vindication of his distrust of America. Yet for all the confrontation, Khamenei has been strategic. He avoided direct, large-scale wars that could threaten the regime's survival. Instead, he fought through proxies, keeping American forces bogged down in Iraq and Afghanistan while avoiding the kind of conventional conflict that destroyed Saddam Hussein. This strategy expanded Iran's regional influence while minimizing direct risk to his rule. By 2017, Khamenei's grip on power faced unprecedented challenges from within Iran itself. Economic protests erupted across the country as inflation soared and unemployment reached crisis levels. Unlike previous political protests confined to Tehran's educated class, these demonstrations spread to working-class cities and focused on bread-and-butter economic issues. Protesters chanted not just against specific policies, but against the entire system, with some even calling for the end of the Islamic Republic. The regime's response was predictable and brutal. Security forces killed dozens and arrested thousands. Khamenei blamed foreign agents and refused to acknowledge legitimate grievances, but the protests kept returning. In 2019, gasoline price hikes triggered the deadliest crackdown yet, with estimates of over 1,500 killed in just a few days. Then came 2022, and the death of Mahsa Amini, a young woman arrested for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly. Her death in police custody sparked the largest sustained protest movement in the Islamic Republic's history. Under the slogan, "Woman, Life, Freedom," Iranians across all demographics took to the streets. Young women burned their hijabs, and protesters tore down images of Khamenei himself, an act of defiance previously unthinkable. The regime again responded with deadly force, killing over 500 protesters, including dozens of children. They executed protesters after sham trials and subjected thousands to torture. Yet the protests revealed a fundamental truth. Khamenei rules through fear, not love. Large portions of Iranian society, especially the young and educated, have rejected the entire system he represents. The question haunting the Middle East is what happens when Khamenei's rule ends. He is 85 years old and has reportedly suffered serious health problems. Unlike Khomeini, who commanded genuine revolutionary legitimacy, Khamenei is seen by many as a political opportunist who manipulated his way to absolute power. When he dies or is overthrown, Iran could face several scenarios. The optimistic scenario envisions a relatively peaceful transition to a more democratic system. In this version, reformist forces within and outside the government negotiate a new political arrangement that grants Iranians genuine freedoms while maintaining stability. The country could rejoin the international community, lift sanctions, and unleash its educated population's economic potential. Iran has a young, tech-savvy population hungry for connection with the wider world. With proper leadership, Iran could become a Middle Eastern success story, leveraging its oil wealth, strategic position, and human capital. Women would gain equal rights, ending the humiliating enforcement of dress codes and gender segregation. Political prisoners would be released, and independent media could flourish. Iran's vibrant culture, suppressed under theocratic rule, could experience a renaissance. The country could redirect billions spent on regional proxies and nuclear development toward education, healthcare, and infrastructure. But there is a darker possibility, one that haunts observers who remember what happened to Libya after Muammar Gaddafi's fall. Like Gaddafi, Khamenei has built a personalized authoritarian system where power flows from a single figure rather than institutions. Both leaders enriched themselves and their families while impoverishing their nations. Both used brutal security forces to crush dissent and funded foreign militias to project regional influence. When Gaddafi fell in 2011, Libya descended into chaos. Multiple armed groups competed for power, and the country fragmented into rival territories. What began as a hopeful revolution became a nightmare of civil war, human trafficking, and terrorist sanctuaries. The removal of a dictator, however brutal, created a vacuum that competing forces rushed to fill. Iran could follow a similar trajectory. The Revolutionary Guards control vast economic and military resources and might refuse to surrender power peacefully. Different ethnic and religious groups, including Azeris, Kurds, Arabs, and Baluchis, could seek autonomy or independence, fragmenting the country. Regional powers like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Israel might intervene to support favored factions, turning Iran into a proxy battlefield. Iran's nuclear facilities and weapons stockpiles could fall into dangerous hands during chaos. The country's proxies in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen might act independently, creating regional instability. Millions of refugees could flee, overwhelming neighboring countries and Europe. The humanitarian catastrophe could dwarf Syria's civil war. There are also intermediate scenarios where hardliners within the regime maintain control through a new supreme leader, continuing repression but potentially with different foreign policy priorities. Or a military coup could establish a nationalist authoritarian government that abandons Islamic theocracy while maintaining authoritarian control, similar to Egypt after the Arab Spring. The reality is that Khamenei's potential fall creates both opportunities and risks. The Iranian people have legitimate grievances: economic devastation, political repression, corruption, and the squandering of their nation's potential. They deserve freedom, dignity, and a government that serves their interests rather than religious ideology or personal enrichment. Yet the transition from dictatorship to democracy is rarely smooth. Iraq's experience after Saddam Hussein showed how removing a dictator can unleash sectarian violence and foreign interference. Syria's uprising against Assad created one of the 21st century's worst humanitarian catastrophes. Even Egypt's revolution ultimately brought another authoritarian government. For Iran's transition to succeed, several factors would be crucial. The opposition would need unified leadership with a clear vision for a democratic future. The international community would need to support Iran's transition financially and diplomatically, while preventing regional powers from exploiting the chaos. Iranian security forces would need to choose national stability over regime loyalty. And most importantly, Iranians themselves would need to bridge ethnic, religious, and political divides to build a new system together. The Gaddafi comparison is instructive but not deterministic. Libya's specific circumstances, including tribal divisions, weak institutions, and NATO's limited intervention strategy, contributed to its collapse. Iran has stronger state institutions, a more educated population, and a longer history of national identity. These factors could enable a better outcome if managed correctly. What is certain is that the current system is unsustainable. A regime that rules through fear while failing to provide economic opportunity or political freedom contains the seeds of its own destruction. Whether Khamenei's end comes through death, illness, or overthrow, Iran stands at a crossroads. The path forward depends on choices made by Iranians themselves and the international community's willingness to support a genuine transition rather than merely pursuing narrow strategic interests. The narcissistic lifestyle Khamenei enjoys, surrounded by luxury while his people suffer, cannot last forever. History shows that dictators who confuse fear with loyalty, who build cults of personality rather than legitimate institutions, eventually face reckoning. Whether that reckoning leads to freedom or chaos depends on preparation, leadership, and the lessons learned from other nations' experiences. What happens next in Iran will shape the Middle East for generations. The fall of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei could mark the beginning of Iranian Renaissance or the start of a regional catastrophe. The only certainty is that change is coming, and the world watches with a mixture of hope and apprehension.